What's up, guys? It's Ryan here at Freedom Valley Farm. I want to take a little time to show you how we cook our pork shoulder. We've got one right here. Pork shoulders can be a little tougher to cook because they're tough. They have a lot of movement. Whenever you have a lot of movement on an area of an animal, it's going to be a tougher piece of meat. The trade-off with that is you've got a lot of flavor in this meat. This is where your pulled pork comes from. So there's lots of flavor here. You just have to figure out how you're going to tenderize the meat. We're going to show you how to do that. So, cooking method. We've got our cast iron skillet here. We're going to spice this guy up. It's going to go in the cast iron skillet. We're going to pan sear it. We're not trying to cook it in this. We're just trying to pan sear it. We're trying to lock in that juice and that flavor into that piece of meat. Then it's going to go in the oven. Okay, so we've got our oils in the pan here. We've got our olive oil. We've got our lard. We've got the heat on high. That's heating up. While we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and spice our shoulder here. So you just want to go ahead and be generous with this. This is basically going to act as your rub over top of the meat. So I'll do one side here. Got my onion powder, my pepper. You're being generous with this. You're going to go ahead and put it on nice and generously. Okay. One thing you want to be careful with is your cayenne. Very spicy. I think this is like 75,000 BTU cayenne, so it's got some kick to it. Okay, we're going to be careful with that. We've got our paprika. This is smoked paprika. It already has a delicious smell and aroma to it. Alright, there's our paprika. Got my chili powder, so I'm going to put this stuff on nice and heavy. There we go. And then we're going to do our garlic salt here. We've got our oils heating up nice, it sounds like. I'm going to go ahead and just pat this into the meat, just to make sure it stays where I want it. Okay, so now we've got both sides of our roast here all seasoned up. I flipped it, I put it on both sides, our seasoning. Our oil is nice and hot. You want your oven or your stovetop on high heat. You want that oil basically burning off there. You see that little bit of smoke coming off. Into the pan it goes. Got a little bit of extra spice and seasoning. I'm just going to brush it over top there. And you've got the sizzle going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let this cook for maybe 2 to 3 minutes on each side. Okay, so now we've got our one side cooked. We're going to go ahead and flip this roast. There we go. We've got that brown, blackened crust on the outside. And those herbs and spices have basically just created that crust on the outside. That's going to make it delicious. It's helping to lock in the flavor and the juices on the meat. So we're going to cook it on this side. Might try and flip it up against this side for a few minutes, and then it's into the pan. Now our roast is browned on all 3 sides. So we're going to kill the heat. We've got our pan here that we're going to put it into the oven. Out of the frying pan into the roasting pan. Oh yeah. Okay. Into the bottom of the pan we're going to put a little apple cider vinegar. But before I do that, I'm actually going to take all my spices and oils from this pan. It's going to go into the bottom of this pan. I'm going to take and scrape out all those beautiful spices. Don't want to leave any of them out. And into the bottom of the pan we're going to put some apple cider vinegar. I'm not measuring, but I'm guessing it's probably about half a cup that I'm putting into the bottom. The apple cider vinegar is going to act as an acid to go ahead and start breaking down that meat as it evaporates and goes and rolls around the meat. It's going to help to break down the meat, the protein, make it a little more tender. So we're going to throw it into the oven. Now you could take this piece of meat and from here you could smoke it if you wanted to. It's a weeknight. I don't have time to smoke it and fire up the smoker and mess with all that. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the oven. I'm going to put it at 275 to 300 degrees. If you've got time for it, put it at 275. It's going to be more tender if you take a little more time with it. If you don't have time, you can bump it up to 300. Don't go much higher than that though, because then you're going to be cooking it too fast. You won't wind up with a tender piece of meat. When we pull this out, I'm going to go ahead and shred it. and then we're going to add our favorite barbecue sauce to it and make a pulled pork. It's going to be delicious. Okay, so now we're going into the oven with our meat. Okay, so for a 2.5 to 4 pound roast, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 hours. How do you know when it's done? You need a meat thermometer. You're trying to get to 145 degrees. 145 degrees is fully cooked. Once you're there, you want to pull it out. It's going to actually go ahead and keep cooking a few degrees more. Might get up to 148 degrees, something like that. But you're good. 145 degrees, you're pulling that out. And then you're going to let it rest. Before you do anything, before you cut it, before you try and shred it, you want to let it rest for at least 15 to 20 minutes. That allows those juices to soak back into the meat and you won't end up with dry meat. So there you have it. That's how you can cook a Freedom Valley Farm pork shoulder roast. Thanks so much for watching this. And a little bit of olive oil. And then I've got here our apple cider vinegar. Now our apple cider vinegar is going to go right into the bottom of the pan when we throw it in the oven. So let me go ahead and get our olive oil and our So we've got our pork shoulder here. I'm going to show you how we're going to cook it. We're going to first sear it here in our cast iron skillet. Are you really? It's going to be tougher, so it's going to cause you to have to be a little more